Welcome to Leadership Trends and Insights. I'm your host, Nina Segura, and our mission is to create collaborative conversations to connect company cultures and our rural community. And today I'm super psyched because I'm joined by Jen Vera. She's the founder of Mystical Sovereign, and I met her actually as a sales embodiment coach, and she's helped me so much, not just with my sales, but also just as a person. And I'm really excited for you to meet with her. She supports high achieving leaders to help them liberate themselves from societal and familial constructs, and so that they can create beautiful and sovereign personal and professional lives of their own design for themselves and for everyone they touch. So welcome, Jen. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm so excited to be here with you, Nina. It is just such a pleasure. And I know we're going to have a really exciting conversation today.
It's going to be super juicy. I'm excited for the people listening to this. Jen, you and I have talked about this before, and I would love for everyone to hear your thought leadership. And what do you think the world needs more now than ever as it relates to leadership?
I feel like the world we need to fully accept ourselves as it relates to leadership. And the reason being is we oftentimes look at leadership as a very externalized thing, right? Like, I'm looking over up there to leadership. But as leaders, if we don't fully accept ourselves and fully love ourselves, we're unable to extend a level of compassion and care that actually creates genuine and authentic relating and relationships with others. And this translates to employee retention. This translates to really empowering others to give their best gifts, to show up because they want to feel respected and revered in the workplace, which inspires their best work. And it always starts with us.
So the best leaders go first, and the way that they do that is accepting where they are today, not making believe things are any other way, but like fully accepting themselves. And from that place, then authentically connecting with the people around them, both their teams and in their personal lives.
Absolutely. And an example of this is if I'm walking around and I am so self-critical and judging myself and second guessing myself, the way I speak to myself is naturally going to extend to how I think about other people. And so the more that we can learn to hold compassion and kindness for ourselves and how we speak to ourselves, and like, I'm a high achiever, you're a high achiever, our audience are high achievers. So there is this critical voice that drives us to achieve more. And oftentimes when I work with high achievers, the big fear is if I'm nice to myself, I won't be as successful. Which is kind of funny, right? However,
yeah, so some of the old ways of leading that get in the way of us accepting ourselves is believing that I need to continue to strive and drive and push, when in reality, or that if I don't do that, I won't get the results, when in reality, you're offering a new way of looking at it.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. There's a fear of releasing the control and releasing this way of being, because if I am nicer to myself, then that equates to a certain softness. And I don't necessarily know that I can get results with softness because I've never allowed myself to be soft with myself.
Yeah. And I know we work a lot with people who are in male majority industries. And I see this happening a lot on both, regardless of gender. I see it happening a lot where we fawn because we don't want to match the aggression. And at the same time, we want to stay assertive, but we want to create new trails, right? We want to blaze new trails. And then we might not necessarily in that particular organization have the support we need. So what you're offering to people is, to take some time and think about, how they really want to be and what kind of support do they need to get there versus, doing it because everybody else is.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Where have you stretched yourself as it relates to this? Can you tell us how you, we have some comments. Hold on. That's always nice. Oh, yay. She said, welcome, Jen. We're excited for the conversation and how we expect others to speak to us and accept that. Very true. Oh, yeah. So that's a really great point, right? Like, so when we speak to ourselves that way, then sometimes we invite others to speak to ourselves in a critical, pushy, right? Like we're inviting that because we're doing it already. And so that's a really good point. I didn't think of that, which is like, hey, when we're doing that, when we stop talking to ourselves so critically, maybe now we're inviting a new way, like new conversations to come in because we've stopped it ourselves. I love that.
Yeah.
That's really good.
So the way for someone who's an achiever to think about this is you're raising your standards. Softness is never lowering your standards. It's raising your standards. It's raising your standards for like getting to live a life of pleasure, which seems radical, right? But getting to live a life where you are seen, you are honored, you are revered because you show that to yourself. And so as you do that, the inevitability is you're no longer willing to tolerate any level that does not treat you in that way.
Yes, that's so good.
And a toleration level, it's different than like being harsh or holding these hard boundaries. Because when you have self-compassion, you can extend compassion for others that don't treat you that way. And so the conversation from this really beautiful feminine space might look like, hey, you said this. It felt like this. Did you mean it in that way? And then it provides a level of self-reflection that's non-judgmental, that's neutral, that allows the other person to say, wow, I'm so sorry. I did not mean it in that way. What I meant was this, and they get to take more self-responsibility for their communication. And so it becomes like this beautiful spiral of you have that because you've worked on yourself, you have that self-awareness, and you're able to not tolerate anything in your space that isn't that and challenge it from a place of neutrality, from a place of compassion. And that shifts how people relate to you, and it shifts their own internal dialogue as well through your beingness versus your doingness.
That's so good. From your beingness versus your doingness. I love it.
A more easeful and effortless life while progressing forward in a fairly radical way.
Yeah, I love it. Well, tell us a little more about like where have you stretched yourself as it relates to your leadership here?
Oh my gosh. Well, okay. I'm going to be radically honest. I had this business teaching high ticket sales, which I loved it, very successful. And then one day I realized like, this is not my ultimate calling. My ultimate calling is it's something much bigger than just this. And so in the birthing of the mystical sovereign, I really had to stretch myself for being like taking the mask off, because our culture, our society really rewards like, oh, you give me money and I teach you to make more money, which is a very easy, simple transaction. And the more work that I did on myself, the more unearthing that like my true self, yes, like I absolutely have that skill set. That's an aspect of my business, but what I'm here to do, my greater purpose is so much bigger. And it took so much strength and courage and centeredness within myself to know that truth, even if it wasn't necessarily conventional, because now I'm moving into teaching more of the personal development, more of the internal, more of the intrinsic, more of tuning into your own individual genius. And as a result, sure, more money, sure.
Yeah, I love
But
that.
it's more and not less. But there was a certain deconditioning, if you will, like of what I was taught in business as a business coach in our industry, of what I needed to do to get there. And even my business practices have changed so radically as well.
I love that. I love that you're putting the being first and the outcomes after. I feel like that, the next question I was going to ask you is, what's some bold predictions that you have for leadership in the future? And if I may, I mean, that might be it, right? Where we're really, as we continue to progress, we're thinking about the next generations coming into the workforce, and, more women. We want to keep more women because women are leaving. You probably know the Great Resignation is really impacting work cultures, and according to the latest Lean In study, women are the ones that are really the allies in organizations, and that they really have taken on a desire to create that culture. And when women leave, organizations can really lose a lot of the strategy and the goals that they're wanting to achieve, because they don't necessarily have what I would consider what women bring as a feminine way of naturally leading, right? And of that care and that connection. And not all women, I realize I'm generalizing, but where do you feel that where are we headed in terms of leadership? Do you feel like this is like, hey, this is how we're being called to this. This isn't optional anymore. What do you
Yes.
feel like is wanting to happen as it relates to leadership today?
We need to invite the feminine into leadership more. And it's not enough to invite women into leadership. That's a start. But we as women, we have been kind of brought up in these very masculine business structures. Women
Yes.
didn't get into the workforce until the 1940s, right?
Yeah.
Until World War II. And so this is also like, we haven't had the opportunity to really create in business or to create the structure. So it's almost, and it's not just inviting women, it's inviting the feminine, which
Yes.
is
I love that
different
you
than
said
just
that.
women, because just because someone is a woman or in a feminine body does not mean that they are in tune with the feminine
Yes.
necessarily. And
So
like,
good.
we speak to this and like, neither is good nor bad. This is very neutral conversation in terms of language and differentiation. So I want to state that. So what I believe is a very feminine principle is this notion of non-hierarchical leadership.
Yes.
In the masculine, there is a hierarchy. There is, one is a winner, one is the best, one is at the top. And that does not create it creates order,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't create the cohesion that you're speaking to in terms of what women are able to bring to the workplace, right? That cohesion, and also honoring the feminine, honoring the soft skills. There is all of this drive to honor the hard skills. But yet, if people don't possess, if they're not trained, if those soft skills in the workplace aren't equally as honored, what you have is, you don't get the cohesion. You don't get a welcoming like team where people are inspired to be their best. And in our current landscape, there has been like, oh, those skills don't matter. And even like, as I was growing up, and I'm a millennial, as I was growing up, like, I didn't think that my level of empathy was important in the workplace, or, the invitation to others, like witnessing others and like empowering others. I didn't think those skill sets were important at all. And so I think non-hierarchical leadership, which is to mean inviting each person into their, like, seeing who they are, their skill sets. And I know you work with strengths finders and you work with things that really help people tune into what their own individual gifts are, allowing people to flourish within those gifts. And what that does is, like, if you're in your gift and I'm in my gift, we become like a really beautiful, cohesive ecosystem, versus where we both equally need and depend on each other. There's an interdependence that's born of that, versus I'm in charge of everything.
Yeah.
Right?
What I heard you say is appreciating the order, appreciating the strategy, appreciating the structure. And then some organizations can be so organized that it's losing, right, the funness and the culture, right, and the innovation, right. So if organizations are struggling with, a lack of, keeping the best and the brightest, or, a lack of innovation or a lack of resilience, right? And recovering from when there's failure, it could mean that we were wanting what the culture's wanting is more of the, which you naturally have. I know you took the modern leadership assessment, which you naturally have, which is you scored nurturer and cultivator, right? The heart of service, leading from the heart. And appreciating the structure, right, and the pointing forward, but then also you scored cultivator, which is like the learning, creating a learning environment, like to learn as much as you like to teach.
Yes.
Did you resonate with that? I just want to make sure
I did. I
Okay.
love people, like it's very natural to me, and I love your assessment. I love the words that you use as well. If you haven't taken Nina's assessment, highly recommend. And also, this is also on track with the trends. It's really knowing what your gifts are and working with your gifts. Because I think so much, at least for me, it's like you go to school, you study this one thing, and then you get a good job, and then you do this one thing. And how much do we ask ourselves? And I think this is also with the younger generations. They are so, with social media, they are so hyper individualized. And if we don't bring that hyper individualization and nurture the genius, nurture the unique genius that each person brings, our organizations will fall behind.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they have more options now more than ever. There's more freedom now. There's more opportunity. And so just to remain competitive in terms of the workforce and to get the best talent, it's really focusing on the individual needs, but being able to have that feminine quality of relating it back to the whole, integrating it into the whole and how it fits in with the whole.
I love the way that you're leading right now, which is leading, what we call that leading from the field, like looking at, I think the best leaders do that, right? You're sitting at the top of the football stadium, you're looking at your organization from that perspective, from an objective perspective, or we're looking, if we're leaders in organizations, we're looking at how do we react, how do we respond to time pressures from that perspective, from the leading from the field, or from money issues. Are we looking at it from the objective observer standpoint? And I know you help people with that. If people wanted to learn more about you and what you do, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way is follow me on social media, Instagram, but there's also a link in the show notes to my calendar. I'm hosting a retreat called The Huntress soon in Sedona. I'm so excited. It's going to be a somatic journey into the feminine primal. And so it's really going to be for people that want to be fully, for women that would want, it's a small retreat, that want to be fully self-expressed within themselves and want to tune into a deeper truth within themselves and be held in sisterhood. It's going to be really juicy, really beautiful. But the best way is Instagram, Jen.Vera, and also Facebook. Find me at Jen Vera as well.
I love it. And I also we will put your coaching call in the chat. And I know that you are a big supporter of our work here. We're having a Modern Women's Leadership Summit next Thursday and Friday. I'll put that in the chat for all of you who are interested in joining us. I believe, Jen, you'll be joining us as a participant, and maybe next year you can speak. That would be awesome. We are looking at thinking, right? Being grateful for, all the women and all the people that have gotten us where we are today, and being appreciative of that. Because we're celebrating Women's Equality Day next Thursday and Friday, but we're also looking to hear from trailblazers, people who have broken industry barriers and transcended status quo. So would love to have you all come and join us. It's free. It's in the show notes. It's Modern Woman Summit, Modern Woman, WOMANS Summit.com / Nina Segura. It's August 25th and 26th. You're welcome to join us. And if you haven't already taken the Modern Leadership Assessment, go ahead and do that. modernleadershipassessment.com if you're listening to this after next Thursday and Friday. But Jen, it was so great to reconnect with you. I know we went a couple minutes over, but hopefully that was good. We've got some really good comments in the chat. You're welcome, Logan. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Yasmina, for your beautiful thoughts in the chat. And thank you, Jen, for joining us. Wishing you so much success in your journey that you're working on.
Thanks so much, Nina.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.